So ever since Pokemon Winds and Waves were confirmed to be 2027 games, we haven't had any other information come out officially from the Pokemon Company or Game Freak aside from the reveal trailer that happened in February, and I feel like that's probably going to be the case now for the rest of this year as well, and we're likely going to have to wait until Pokemon Day next year in February 2027 to get the next new trailer and really start getting the marketing to ramp up because that is when the games are coming out. But that's not going to stop people from talking about potential leaks and rumors for things that could be inside of Pokemon Winds and Waves, and I could talk about like every new thing that gets posted online every day, but it's not really as much fun for me anymore unless the information is coming from a somewhat reputable or credible source, and that is what we have here today, as we've got a ton of information on details about the games, potential new evolutions, typings, and a lot more with Pokemon Winds and Waves, and this is coming from insiders and sources that people are saying have gotten things correct in the past, so there is a good chance that these things could be true, so they are a little bit more credible than just somebody posting like random stuff on a forum, and that's why I really want to talk about it and give you guys my thoughts. With the release of Pokemon Champions, Pokemon battles are now accessible to a whole new audience of mobile players, but not every phone can get the game. Maybe you don't have the gigabytes of free storage available, or your smartphone is overheated and can't run the game. That's where Moomoo Player comes in. Moomoo Player is the ultimate next-generation Android emulator, perfect for running the newest games. Many other Android emulators have issues such as poor performance, lag, and constant update compatibility issues, but Moomoo Player offers flawless stability with high frame rates and beautiful graphics. It has an Android 12+15 dual system, giving risk-free flexibility, easy to install updates for games like Pokemon Champions, and broader game compatibility with even overseas regional versions of games opening perfectly smoothly. On top of that, it comes in with built-in auto translation and a game booster, so even if you're playing a version in another language, you'll have zero trouble jumping right in. And here's the best part, it's completely free to experience. The installation process is very simple, and you can start playing games like Pokemon Champions in amazing quality like I have here with just a few clicks on PC or Mac. There's many customizable options for whatever kind of PC or system you might have, and I was able to get the game running incredibly smoothly with high quality visuals. Check out Moomoo Player from the link in the description or the pinned comment below, and thank you so much to Moomoo Player for collaborating with me. Alright, but jumping into the information about the games, one of the most insane things that I'm sure some of you might have seen by now is apparently there are reports saying that Pokemon Winds and Waves will feature the highest amount of new Pokemon ever in a main series Pokemon title, and they're saying that the number is close to 300 brand new Pokemon and forms. And I know that that sounds absolutely ridiculous because just looking at how many new Pokemon get introduced in a new generation, this is like multiple new generations put together in terms of how many new Pokemon could be added into the game. But the thing is, apparently people have like independently verified this with numerous sources, and multiple of them are all saying that this is in fact very much real, and there are really going to be like close to 300 brand new Pokemon or forms that are going to be inside of Winds and Waves. So this is just incredibly exciting if it ends up being real, because can you imagine just having like a gigantic open world Pokemon game like this, and pretty much every single place you go to, everywhere you look, and every corner that you find, there's just a brand new Pokemon that you've never seen before. Like, the sound of that just excites me a ton, and I really only kind of remember having an experience like that was with Pokemon Black and White, but I guess that's because there weren't any old Pokemon at all for like the entire game until the post game, and because of that, every single patch of grass that you ran into and everywhere you look, there was just brand new Pokemon, and I personally really loved that, but I know some people didn't because they couldn't use like Pikachu and stuff. But yeah, I just feel like even having like just the older Pokemon, which we've already seen inside of the trailers, but just also a ton of brand new Pokemon is gonna make for a very exciting Pokemon game. So I am very much hoping for this to be real, and it looks like that it is gonna be the case. And they also did say that they're counting forms, so maybe that could also include like some of the new Gimmick forms, which I'll talk about later. But we've also heard that apparently there's going to be like a seed Pokemon or something, which is going to have like infinite evolutions because they're randomly generated. So maybe it's kind of counting that with all the configurations it could have with that too. I did already make an entire video going over all of those leaks for Generation 10 from like that massive Game Freak Terra hack that happened. So if you didn't see that video, you can click on the little eye up in the corner right now if you want to go and watch that video, but also have it in the outro of this video if you want to go and watch it after you're done watching this one. It also looks like Pokemon Winds and Waves will be an MMO light with a focus on communication features, and they're really saying here that the online play will be the biggest technical leap in Generation 10. So this definitely kind of excites me because I think that Gen 9 was already kind of trying to do some cool things with the online, with how like you could invite people into your world and you could have like that online multiplayer where people could be running around inside of your region and you could catch shinies together and do stuff. So I would love to see that get enhanced even further. Like one of the things that I've always really wanted inside of a Pokemon game with the online, which I don't think that it'll be possible inside of this game, but maybe they could somehow make it work, is like you could be there kind of alongside other people as they're kind of exploring and having their adventure, where like if one of my friends is having like a gym battle, I could like watch them having that gym battle and be like on the sidelines like cheering for them, kind of like what they do in the anime whenever Ash is like having like a gym battle, like you always see his friends on like the sides. I would love to have some type of experience like that in a mainline Pokemon game. I don't know how they could make it work, but just seeing that the online is going to be like a big improvement coming from Gen 9 and that's going to be like a big focal point of this, I am very excited to see what they have planned. It also says here that Pokemon Winds and Waves will follow a similar structure to Scarlet and Violet of having 3 main stories simultaneously together. So if you remember how it was done in Gen 9, you had like the Arven story with like his Pokemon that was sick, and you had that with like all the different Titans that you faced off against, and then you would unlock like new ways of traversal on Koraidon and Miraidon. So you had that whole storyline. Then you had like the Nemona storyline where you just had to go on and face all of the gyms and collect all the badges and then try to get to the Pokemon League. So you had that, and then the third storyline was with Penny where you had all the stuff with Team Star. So it seems like it's going to be kind of similar to that inside of these games as well, and maybe all of that will kind of culminate together at the end for like the finale, like how they did in Scarlet and Violet with Area Zero. So that would be really cool to see. Now, apparently it says here that Lieutenant Surge's son is going to be inside of this game and he's going to have his dad's Raichu. I don't know how important this character is actually going to be to the story, or if it's just going to be like a cool reference to have something to Gen 1 again, but either way, it seems like that is apparently going to be something that's a part of these games. Now, this next thing makes me a little bit worried, but it says here that voice acting was planned for the game, but it could have been cut or scrapped because it's not present in the current builds anymore. And this is something that I had just been hoping for the longest time. Pokemon has desperately needed voice acting ever since they moved to having games on the Nintendo Switch, and you just have like some of those really awkward scenes where I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, with like how in Pokemon Sword and Shield, like whenever you have that scene with Pierce singing and there's like no audible sounds coming out at all, and then they had like that rapper gym leader in Gen 9 and she of course was singing and had nothing coming out either. It just feels very awkward now with having all of these like high quality character models and having all of these like high definition graphics, but whenever the characters speak inside of these cutscenes you hear nothing. So I am hoping that voice acting does get implemented, and that is something that we have been hearing rumors about too. So it doesn't have to be the entire game like I said before, but I would at least like for the important cutscenes to have voice acting like what they kind of do in Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Then it says here that there will be an underwater point of interest like a coral reef called the Neon Abyss, and that there's also going to be areas of the world that you can only reach by flying. So if we're going to have like really high areas that you can only get to by flying, and also like these really deep underwater areas with like the Neon Abyss that you can explore too, that really sounds like that this game is going to be a very big and expansive region, which definitely excites me because I could see myself sinking hundreds of hours into this game even to really discover everything and collect all the items and really kind of have that sense of adventure. So that is making me very excited. Any of you who are shiny hunters out there will be excited to hear this, which is that shiny Pokemon are in fact going to be in the overworld, so you will see the different colors for them right away. But the best part is that the shiny sound is also returning from Pokemon Legends Arceus and Legends ZA, so even if you're just exploring and a shiny Pokemon spawns in behind you, there will be a sound effect now, so you'll know that there is a shiny Pokemon nearby, so you can try to go and find it. So that is going to be very fun. Now this makes me pretty happy, but it looks like that both of the cover legendaries that are going to be for Pokemon Winds and Waves are in fact going to be important to the game's story, as this is very similar to like Pokemon Black and White, where depending on whichever version of the game that you get, if you get Pokemon Black, you get to have Reshiram and you'll get to be like the hero for that Pokemon inside of the game, but the other legendary Zekrom, or if you pick the other version, it'll be Reshiram for that one, it's still very important because N is a part of the story and he'll be the hero for that Pokemon, and then you get to have like the big finale, like climactic face-off at the Pokemon League, which is always so much fun, and I definitely prefer having like those kinds of legendaries compared to just having like it being focused on one legendary, which is like whatever version of the game that you get. So this definitely excites me, and I can't wait to see how they're gonna like portray all of that and have it work inside of the story. And really, it looks like that the idea for this generation is to be the most personable one yet, where you really remember all of these new Pokemon, you get to know them, feel closer to them, and it's still going to be a very ambitious game, even despite that they may have had to reduce the initial scope that they had for it, as if you guys remember the initial leaks that we had for Gen 10 that came from that Game Freak Terra hack, it really seemed like Generation 10 was going to be extremely ambitious with all the things that they had planned for it and what they wanted to do, and while it seems like the final game they might have had to tone down some of those things, this is still going to be the most ambitious Pokemon game that we're ever going to see, and it should be because it is the very important Generation X double-digit Gen 10 game, and it is also going to be there essentially to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, as this game likely was supposed to come out this year, but it got delayed to next year, and even in terms of that, it seems like that the delay here was just to them needing more time and really wanting to polish the game. And that's why I'm totally fine with that, because Generation 9 with Scarlet and Violet, I do think that those are good games, but it was just really unfortunate for the state that those games were released in when they initially came out for the original Switch back in 2022, and with having all of those bugs and glitches and the game just being kind of a mess in that sense, it just made people's experience be pretty poor, and even the games themselves were having some cool ideas and a lot of cool things that I feel like were pretty fun to go through. Just the fact that the game was always kind of having crashes and buggy messes and glitches and stuff, it just made the like initial experience for so many people not that fun. And that's why I really do think that like if you haven't already, and if you have a Nintendo Switch 2, experiencing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the Switch 2, it feels like a whole new game. Just seeing like the entire game rendered in 4K and having like the 60 FPS and having everything really smooth and just really fun to kind of play through in that sense. If you haven't, I would definitely recommend having a whole new playthrough of Gen 9 on the Nintendo Switch 2. That's a great way to kind of have something to play until Winds and Waves comes out, but it really does feel much better on the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's why I feel like that they really want to make sure that Gen 10 is actually very polished and they don't have that type of experience for people when they play the game for the first time. And then the last thing that we have here in terms of game details is apparently a lot of the dev team has already moved on to the DLC, which is codenamed Zeus, so I think that that makes sense too. We're definitely going to see some DLC for Gen 10 after the games come out, so that's probably going to be what's going to happen in 2028, so we're probably going to have maybe 2 packs of DLC like what they've done in the past, where you had like the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet you had the Teal Mask and the Indigo Disc. But now moving on to information about the brand new battle gimmick, apparently it's going to introduce special weather forms for certain Pokemon, kind of like what they did with Mega Evolutions and Gigantamax. And this is making me pretty happy because if they're only going to be for certain Pokemon, then that means that the designs for them are actually going to be really cool and unique, because that is one of the things that I really think a lot of people love about Mega Evolutions, is that because only certain Pokemon get them, you can have like these really incredible designs for these brand new Mega Evolutions, which is what they really seem to kind of go away from with the other gimmicks that they introduced after, where like it seemed like with Z moves, it's like every Pokemon can use a Z move, then with Dynamax, every Pokemon can get bigger and Dynamax, and then with Terastallizing, every Pokemon can Terastallize and become crystals, but like it really seems like when you have like just certain Pokemon that can have like these exclusive forms, that's when they can really make like the designs for them something really special and cool looking, and I think that that is what we're going to see now in Generation 10. Now, some of the Pokemon that apparently have placeholders for these special new weather forms are Arcanine, Lucario, Kecleon, Pikachu, and 7 brand new Generation 10 Pokemon. So these Pokemon could actually get these special new weather forms that are going to be a part of the gimmick in Gen 10, but it's also important to know that these are in fact placeholders, so it might not actually end up happening either, because there have been instances where we've seen stuff like Mega Jinx, where there was supposed to be like a Mega Evolution for Jinx apparently, and then it never happened, so that's possible that something like that could happen here too. But some of these Pokemon, like Lucario is a fan favorite, Pikachu is of course the mascot, so I think that those two Pokemon are pretty likely to get something. But then again, with like Kecleon and Arcanine, I don't really know, but then again, just take all of these with a grain of salt. Now, ever since Generation 7, there have also been older Pokemon that get new forms inside of a new generation that is exclusive to that generation only. So with Gen 7, you had Alola forms in Pokemon Sun and Moon. With Gen 8, you had Galarian forms in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And then in Gen 9, you had Paldean forms inside of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So there are going to be regional forms for whatever the region is called in Gen 10 as well. And at the moment, it seems like we only know one of these, which is going to be for Psyduck, and apparently Psyduck is going to become an Ice and Psychic type inside of Gen 10. But these regional forms can also have brand new regional evolutions, so this is kind of like how you have the different type of Farfetch'd inside of Pokemon Sword and Shield, but then it evolves into Surfetch, which is a whole new Pokemon and a brand new evolution. So it seems like a handful of Pokemon are going to be getting brand new regional evolutions as well. And so Psyduck is actually going to have two of these, where it seems like there's going to be the, like, whatever the Gen 10 Psyduck is, it's going to have two different versions of its evolution. Maybe they're going to be like version exclusives where you only get one of them in Pokemon Winds and then another one in Pokemon Waves. But by the end of this, Psyduck is going to be evolving into three different things, where you have like the normal Golduck and then also the two different evolutions that are going to be introduced in Pokemon Winds and Waves. Salandit is apparently going to be getting a brand new regional evolution as well, where that's going to become a Poison and Dragon Pokemon, so that's a very fun typing to have. I think that we only have two Pokemon that are actually Poison and Dragon. I think one of them is like Naganadel, which was like that Ultra Beast that was introduced in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon. And then I think the only other one is Dragalge, so having another Poison and Dragon is going to be pretty cool, especially if it keeps like that corrosion ability where you can poison everything. Like if it's actually a pretty powerful Pokemon, that's going to be pretty fun to use. Apparently Onix is going to have a brand new regional evolution too, so that'll be pretty nice. I think Steelix is a pretty cool Pokemon already, but maybe that's going to have an even cooler evolution that we're going to get to see inside of these games. Houndour is apparently going to have a new regional evolution too, so Houndoom I think is a pretty nice Pokemon, but I'm curious to see what a brand new Houndour could evolve into, so that'll be pretty cool. And then the one that makes me very excited is that there's going to be a new regional evolution for Zweilous, and so Hydreigon is probably one of my favorite Pokemon. I think it's just a really cool Pokemon. I love how it has like the three heads. It's a very powerful Pokemon too, and so if Zweilous is going to evolve into something different with a new regional evolution, I am really excited to see how that Pokemon is going to look inside of these games. And then the other two that apparently could be getting regional evolutions as well is the Nincada line. So Nincada, you already have it evolving into either Shedinja or Ninjask, and I guess it's going to have a new one that can happen inside of Winds and Waves. And then the other one is Clamperl. This is always a Pokemon that I forget about, but Clamperl can evolve into either Huntail or Gourgeist, and I guess inside of Pokemon Winds and Waves, there's going to be another option for it as well. Now this next thing here is for potential deconfirms, but these are not 100% fact or guaranteed, so it's still possible that these things could happen, but it just seems like according to the insiders and reputable people as of right now, these things are in fact deconfirmed. So the first one is that it seems like that there is no new EV evolution in the current build of Pokemon Winds and Waves. This is of course very disappointing because it seems like ever since Pokemon Sun and Moon, people have been asking for a brand new EV evolution, and when it didn't happen in Sun and Moon, I wasn't really that worried because I kept telling everyone, it's okay guys, the kind of pattern that we have right now is it always happens with every even generation. As Gen 2 you had Umbreon and Espeon, Gen 4 you had Glaceon and Leafeon, Gen 6 you had Sylveon, so Gen 8 is going to come in and save us with a brand new EV evolution, and then it didn't happen. And then it didn't happen in Paldea with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet either, so we just have not had a brand new Eevee evolution for the longest time, and it's something that people have been asking for, so I would have loved to see it inside of Pokemon Winds and Waves with Gen 10, but it just seems like apparently, according to right now, just the information that we have, it doesn't seem like there is in fact a brand new evolution. And then the other thing is that apparently there's no new evolution at the moment for Tropius. And so Tropius was a Pokemon that we already did get to see inside of the reveal trailer for Pokemon Winds and Waves. So we know that it's going to be inside of these games. And it's just a Pokemon that people have been asking for the longest time to get an evolution, because the Pokemon on its own is not really that strong or powerful. So getting an evolution where it gets stronger and it has an even cooler form, I think that could definitely help out the Pokemon a lot. But unfortunately, as of right now, it seems like that there is no evolution for Tropius. And then finally, the last bit of information that we have for Pokemon Winds and Waves is just a rumor on what the final evolutions of the starter Pokemon could be in terms of their types. So when it comes to Broud, it seems like that the evolution for that is gonna end up being Grass and Ground. So this is a typing that we've already seen before with Torterra, and I think that it's a pretty solid typing. You're of course going to get obliterated by Ice, but I think that the typing on its own is pretty strong, and if it ends up being like a pretty powerful offensive Pokemon, I think that that could be pretty cool. For Pombon, the final evolution for it might be a Fire and Fairy type, and that's making many people very excited because, believe it or not, but there is no Fire or Fairy Pokemon that exists as of right now, so it is a highly anticipated type configuration that people have been asking for, and it already seems like Pombon is kind of like the fan favorite when it comes to these starters, so if the evolution ends up being a Fire and Fairy type, that's going to make a lot of people very excited. And it also seems like they're really starting to add like the fairy typing to a lot of these starter Pokemon, because you had Primarina being water and fairy with Pokemon Sun and Moon, and then most recently with Pokemon Legends ZA, the Mega Evolution for Meganium ended up becoming grass and fairy, so we're missing fire and fairy now, so maybe Pombon is going to be the one that finally gives us that. And then finally for Gekwa, apparently the final evolution for it is going to be a water and psychic type, which is also another really powerful configuration too. We already have water and psychic Pokemon like Starmie, but I think that's a very powerful typing to have, so I'm very excited to see what that Pokemon could potentially look like, and I could definitely kind of see it with having like those eyes and kind of using that as like psychic powers to move things around and stuff, so I think that is a pretty likely possibility. But keep in mind that all of these are just rumors, they're not confirmed, but they are coming from somewhat reputable sources, so it might actually end up being real, but don't think of this as it's going to happen for sure. But I do think that a lot of people would be very happy and pleased if these typings do end up being real. But with that, there you go guys, those are pretty much all of the leaks and rumors that are going around right now for Pokemon Winds and Waves, and are coming from somewhat reputable and credible sources, meaning that they could in fact be real, but keep in mind it's all just a rumor right now and you can't trust everything 100%, but I definitely think that with all of this, the games are sounding extremely exciting, and I can't wait till we get some more information officially. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about Pokemon, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about all of this. How do you feel about all the stuff that you're hearing now with these games, and how there could be 300 new Pokemon, some of these new regional evolutions and everything? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about it, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.